Hello, my dear students. We have History and Civilization course, and today we deal with Chapter 9, The Crisis of Kings and Nobility. We have two subjects, yes, the Crisis of Kingship and the Wars of the Roses. The Crisis of Kingship, to begin with, during the 14th century, towards the end of the Middle Ages, there was a continuous struggle between the king and his nobles. The first crisis came in 1327 when Edward II was deposed and cruelly murdered. His 11-year-old son Edward III became king, and as soon as he could, he punished those responsible. But the principle that kings were neither be killed or nor deposed was broken. Henry IV spent the rest of his reign establishing his royal authority, but although he passed the crown to his son peacefully, he had sown the seeds of civil war. Half a century later, the nobility would be divided between those who supported his family, the Lancasterian, and those who supported the family of Earl of March, the Yorkists. The second topic is here today, the Wars of Roses. There were not more than 60 noble families in England, controlling England at the time. Most of them were related to each other through marriage. Some of the nobles were extremely powerful. Many of them continued to keep their own private armies after returning from the war in France, and used them to frighten local people into obeying them. Some of these armies were large. For example, by 1450, the Duke of Buckingham had 2,000 men in his private army. The discontented nobility were divided between those who remained loyal to Henry VI, the Lancasterians, and those who supported the Duke of York, the Yorkists. The Duke of York was the heir of the Earl of March, who had lost his competition for the throne when Richard the second was deposed in 1399. In 1450 or 1560, the Duke of York claimed the throne for himself. After his death in battle, his son Edward took up the struggle and won the throne in 1461. The war between York and Lancaster could probably have been stopped there and then, if Edward's son had been old enough to rule. But if Edward's brother, Richard of Gloucester, had not been so ambitious. But then Edward IV died in 1483. His own two sons, the 12-year-old Edward the Fifth and his younger brother, were put in the tower by Richard of Gloucester. Richard took the crown and became King Richard III. A month later, the two princes were murdered. William Shakespeare's play Richard III, written a century later, accuses Richard of murder, and almost everybody believed it. Richard III had a better reason than most to wish his own two nephews, dead, but his guilt has never been proved. Richard III was not popular. Both Lancasterians and Yorkists disliked him. In 1485, a challenger with a very distant claim to royal blood brought John of, or yes, through John of Gaunt, landed in England with Briton soldiers to claim the throne. Many discontented lords, both Lancasterians and Yorkists, joined him. His name was Henry Tudor, a Duke of Richmond, and he was half Welsh. He met Richard III at Bosworth. Half of Richard's army changed sides, and the battle quickly ended immediately. Yes, in his defeat and death, Henry Tudor was crowned king immediately on the battlefield. The war had finally ended through this. Though this, could not have been clear at the time. Much later in the 19th century, the Scottish novelist Walter Scott named these wars the Wars of Roses because York's symbol was a white rose, while Lancaster's a red rose. The Wars of the Roses nearly destroyed the English idea of kingship forever. After 1460, there had been little respect for anything except the power to take the crown. Tudor historians made much of these wars and made it seem as if much of England had been destroyed. This was not true. Fighting took place for only a total of 15 months out of the whole 25-year period. Only nobles and their armies were involved.